Meanwhile, the midterm election, just 2 weeks from tomorrow. That's exciting. The main focus for voters, of course, the economy and inflation. President Biden today blamed inflation on himself? No, on everyone else. But at least we're doing better than other countries. That's all that matters. Watch.
We know a lot of folks are struggling with inflation, driven by Putin's war in Ukraine and the global pandemic. It's a little solace, but we have a lower inflation rate than most any other nation in the world.
Yes, but we live here, and he's the president of here. So here is where he should be focusing his efforts. According to a new report by Lending Club, 63% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck. Economists agree a recession is very likely, and about half of them think that we're already in one. Well, over the next 12 months, the Fed is expected to continue to raise rates. So what can we do to get ourselves out of this mess? Here to discuss, Reason Features editor, we call him Suderman Computerman, Peter Suderman is back. So let me ask you this, Peter. I know politicians, they want to ignore problems and they want to say things to make themselves more attractive to voters so they can maintain power. But is it possible the president ignored some of the warning signs of a looming recession and inflation?
It's definitely possible. Look, go back a year and a half, 2 years to when Biden just entered office. Even Democratic economists, guys like Larry Summers, who was a Democratic, who was in the White House under a Democratic president as a top economist, he was saying, look, if you spend $2 trillion deficit financed without paying for any of it, that is going to lead, that's going to create a risk of a huge, of huge inflation, of runaway inflation. This wasn't just coming from right-wingers. This wasn't some Republican talking point. This was something that every responsible economist knew. Biden and the Democratic Party went ahead and spent $2 trillion without paying for a bit of it. And what did they spend it on? A bunch of terrible programs and handouts to Democratic cronies. That's all it was. It didn't help anybody. You look at now, you look at even the programs that just sent checks to people. You look now at the polls, the surveys about what people thought was good about the American Rescue Plan, and people will say, I didn't like that. It didn't really help me very much. Biden is trying to avoid blame. And in this, he is joining a long line of presidents who have tried to avoid blame for a bad economy. Go back to the 1970s. Jimmy Carter, in debates with Ronald Reagan, said, well, it's OPEC's fault. You know, it's the fault of productivity and the American people. Actually, you know, in Judge Sowe, the economy is kind of good.
Yeah, and
he actually gave his the great factoid about Jimmy Carter and inflation and recessions was he actually told his top inflation advisor, the guy whose job was to deal with the inflation problem. He said, you can't say the word recession. So instead, that guy decided he was going to call it banana. Well, there's a good chance we're in a banana already, and that it's Biden's fault.
Yeah, we could make a banana split. We could make banana bread. We might be in a banana republic. We're absolutely silly with bananas right now, and that's the thing. You can blame it on whomever you want. People are smarter than that. They know that they are hurting, and they know that there is no relief around the corner. They know, you know, it's like, sure, it may be darkest before the dawn, but we haven't even gotten to the darkest part yet. So what should they be doing, Suderman Computerman?
Well, the main thing they should be doing in the run-up to the midterm here is not talking about it. There's actually a Democratic pollster who's saying that, you know, he used Biden's actual words on voters to say when Biden bragged about the economy. Biden said something like, we have an economy that's, excuse me for swearing, strong as hell, in Biden's words, something like that. And when this Democratic pollster tested this on voters, he said that was actually the worst performing message because voters simply didn't buy it. And here's the thing about inflation. When you have high inflation, you can't hide that from voters because they see that every single time they go to fill up their gas tank, every single time they go to the grocery store and try to buy a hamburger. It's not something that you can hide from voters. And Biden doesn't really have any very good options here going into the midterm.
No, and people aren't dumb. And then, you know, surrogates like Nancy Pelosi going on Sunday shows going, we should change the subject when they say inflation and call it a cost of living issue. It's like, lady, that's inflation. All right, Peter Suderman, Computerman, always good to see you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Many cocktails in your future.